911, what are you reporting?
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
My dog went flying through the air over the tree. I don't know how it did it.
Okay.
Damn it, I'm really confused. All I saw was my dog coming over the fence, and he was dead when she hit the ground. I didn't see any cars. All I saw was my dog coming over the fence.
What are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was?
It was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
And we're live. I think it all worked like it was supposed to. What's up, Kyle?
How's it going, Brian? Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you being here. This is the second live Sasquatch Odyssey show. So the first one went off with a few hitches. So hopefully this one will be less cumbersome than the first time. We already screwed it up, or at least I screwed it up because I forgot to hit the live button when I started playing my intro. So for those of you that missed half the intro, it's the same as it always was. So you didn't really miss anything. But before we get started with the interview, I want to take time to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate you guys showing up. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already done so, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content, because we're going to continue to do these live shows over here. So that said, if you haven't already done that, please hit that subscribe button now. If you're watching on Facebook, come over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because that's what it's really all about, is we want you to subscribe over here, because you never know when I'm going to pop on and you might miss something that you didn't want to miss. So that said, Kyle, thank you for being here. You've been on the show before. This is our first live show, so we'll muddle our way through this together, hopefully. And if you guys have questions, I put it out there earlier. If you have questions for me or Kyle, put them in all caps. If you're in the chat, we'll try to get to it. I know we've got at least one guy waiting in the wings. Joe's waiting backstage. We'll bring him on at some point in time to have him ask some questions of Kyle, I believe. So we'll get there shortly. But before we get there, let me go ahead and start with Kyle. For those that don't know who you are, let's give them a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, and what brings you on the show tonight.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming on and watching the show. You probably don't know me all too well, but I work in close cooperation with Todd Standing. I've spent just over a month solid out in the backcountry working with him, working alongside him, training from him. And I've had a lot of encounters with him, a lot of experiences. Him and I, we work really close together. We're really good. I consider us good friends. I don't know if he'll say the same, because he likes to stay on some sort of a professional level, which I deeply respect that. And so, yeah, I work for him. I do the podcast for him on Sylvanic Bigfoot. That's Todd Standing's Bigfoot channel. Discovering Bigfoot podcast, obviously. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook. I'm on the YouTube channel all the time. The shows go up every Saturday. Yeah, that's pretty much it right now. We're working to get this discovery made, and the podcast is for the expeditioners who come out with us and know us really well and spent the time out there and sweat and bled with us. I want to give them that voice, and anybody else who wants to share their story, you're welcome on my show too.
Well, let's start maybe with, you've had a couple of encounters. So let's go back, and even though you went over this the first time you were on the show, for those that aren't familiar, since this is a sort of a new medium, if you will, let's kind of walk them through your first experience, and then we'll go into what happened over this last summer. I know you've got some fresh experiences when you guys were out on the expedition. So let's kind of do that. Start with your very first encounter, which I believe was with Todd, if I'm not mistaken. And then we'll move into what happened over the summer.
Okay, well, my first encounter was back in 2016. It was not with Todd. It was with my dad. We were hunting up in the Adirondacks, and it was getting close to dark. We decided to go out for one last kind of stand, because when dusk comes, usually the deer start moving. So I picked a spot, and he moved off about 100, 200 yards. Find a different one. Figured split up, better chances. So I found this little kind of group of trees there was an open spot in between. So I had kind of a wall of trees around me, and there was fresh deer sign through there. So I kind of kneeled down for the most part behind, but also underneath a tree, just so if anything popped out, I could see it. And I was somewhat hidden. So I'm not sure how long a time it took for it to start happening. It could have been a couple minutes I was there. It could have been half an hour. I don't really remember. But what started happening is I started hearing branches break. And at first it was a little bit subtle. Then it just started getting really, really loud. And the tree across from the clearing that I was in was probably 20 yards away. So it sounded like it was right on the other side of that tree. I didn't see anything going on, and it's just getting dark. And all I hear is just these big branches breaking. And it's not like, so I grew up logging. Like that's my family, owned a sawmill and everything like that. I spent a lot of time, cutting firewood and logging and hearing trees fall. I know what they sound like. And those were big branches. Those are really big, thick branches. And it wasn't like a crack. It was like a snap. So whatever was breaking it had to have been huge, because you don't get that kind of sound out of little branches. And it was repeated. It was one after the other, after the other, after the other. I didn't hear any noise other than that. There was no breathing or grunting or anything. I didn't see trees moving. It was just this weird, crazy sound that was happening, but seemed to be 50 feet away from me, and I couldn't see anything going on. So, my first thought was like, okay, a bear's about to come right out of that into the clearing, and it's coming at me. Like, I don't know what else is going on. I'm 18. So I picked my gun up, and I'm looking through the scope, just waiting for something to pop out. And it keeps it keeps smashing limbs and breaking stuff. And I start hearing whoosh, smash. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make any more sense than what I'm imagining right now, because I'd have to see trees being pulled over or something. And if it was like two moose fighting, like you would have seen, like you would know, you'd hear the breathing, you'd see the trees moving. It didn't make sense until I started hearing, the branches actually whooshing through the air. Then I said, oh, something's grabbing those and swinging them against a tree to break it, or like it has to be something with thumbs. And that's when it kind of hit. And I've always been a Bigfoot believer. I've always known that that's been around. I just never thought in New York that there would ever be a possibility of that. So I'm white as a ghost now, because I think I know what's going on, and it's still happening. And my dad comes running up, and he's like white as a ghost too. Is like, what is that? Like, I thought something happened to you. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't really know. And he's hearing, the whooshes and the big branches breaking and stuff, and it just stops. So we're looking at each other, and it's getting close to dark. Okay, I think it's time to leave, because I don't know what that was, and I don't really want to talk about what that was. Like I said on my first show with you, is my dad is my idol. He's the biggest man in the world, and as any father should be. And to see him white as a ghost was like, okay, all right, something's really bad, something's really wrong. And him and I are super, super close. I live 1,500 miles away from my dad right now, and I talk to him almost every day. I always talk to him, and him and I didn't talk about it. Like, we went on this hunting trip together. We went back to the camper. We didn't talk about it, and then we left. It was a 4-hour drive back home. We never talked about this, which is crazy weird for him and I's relationship. So what came down to it was Todd Standing had put out his documentary, and I watched the whole thing, the 3 hours or however long it is, and I stopped, and I put it back onto the first couple seconds, and Dad, come here. And he sat down next to me, and I watched it again with him. And after it was over, I stopped it and I looked at him. I'm like, remember that time in the Adirondacks? And before I even finished my sentence, he looks at me and goes, yeah. And we're like, okay, that was all right. That's what that was. And unfortunately, that was a scary encounter. And I really, really don't like having scary encounters. That was actually about the only scary encounter I've had with Sasquatch. Um, I didn't go over there, by the way, for anybody who's going to ask. I was too afraid, and so was my dad, to go over and see what was going on over there, especially when it's almost dark now. Um, but that was my first encounter, and the second one I had was with Todd. And if you want to get into that, I can, but it's up to you. It's your show.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat. Joe was asking. He's actually in Western New York. He was asking what part of New York you guys were in when this happened.
So I'll give it up. It's a little town. It's just south of Lake Placid. Long Lake is where I was. My dad grew up in that town for a few years of his life in his teenage years, and so we went up there. It's the Wild Peaks National Forest. We went hunting in there, and that's where that happened.
Gotcha. So let's fast forward and talk about what's happened over this last year. You guys have been going out on these expeditions, and I know you had some recent experiences. So why don't you sort of set the stage for us about this last couple of expeditions you went out on and what happened and what did you experience?
Okay, so I don't think a week is enough for an expedition. So I always take 2 weeks and I go up to Canada to see Todd. And like I said before, he slept on my couch. I've slept on his. Like we're close friends, and I like to go and just kind of hang out with him, regardless if it's Bigfoot stuff or not. I'm close to his family. His sister's amazing. Ash, his girlfriend, incredible woman, and like we play football when we're not out in the woods, so it's good to just kind of have that friendship with him. So even if we're not out in the woods, I'll take 3-4 days and we'll go back to his place and hang out and just decompress from what happened and talk about it, and then make a plan for the next time to go out. So this year I went out September. I think I was there September 4th, and I stayed till I think the 19th. And I was out there for about 80% of the time. And I had spent 2 weeks the last year up there also, which was amazing. Stuff happened. We had vocalizations, we had apples taken. We actually had, for people who don't know what an Inukshuk is, it's a rock stack that was kind of coined by the natives as like a respect for the land and to show that you were there. And one of those was left for me and Todd and two other researchers, which was incredible. I've never seen or heard of that ever happening, but we have proof of it. We have photos of it. Todd actually has the rocks in his room. So the next year I was expecting some really crazy stuff to happen, and I'm not the kind of person to really fit into the mold. I like to go against what people think and say. Hence why I'm here. And Todd has really strict guidelines. We're out miles from anybody else. Miles. We're way back on a logging road. There's grizzly bears. There's mountain lions. There's bull moose. There's elk. There's everything's out there. It's not a place to play around. It's not a place to go for a nature stroll. If you think like a deer, you are a deer. Bears will come after you. So his guidelines are very specific for very, 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 very good reasons. I like to branch off from that because I think that if you go for the same thing, you're going to have the same results. I need to go out there with a different mentality. I'm going to be crazy. I'm going to be stupid. And I'm going to push the boundaries because that's the only way we're going to get further in this. So every night we go back to the camper that we have because that's the safest place to sleep. Bears don't really go for the camper. And if they do, we have a little bit of warning before they get in. No, I'm going to sleep outside. I want to go over there by myself. No, I'm going to I want to spend a couple nights out here by myself. Like you guys go back to the city. I'm going to stay here for, 3-4 nights by myself. I'll figure it out, and I did. He let me, which is a little bit surprising, honestly, because I thought he was going to fight me tooth and nail, but he let it happen. But I think it's because he trusts me and he knows that I'm not going to do anything too crazy. But the first nights I spent out there were a little bit nerve wracking. I gotta say that much because, grizzly bears, they're not something to mess with. And we did actually have a bear come through the one night that it was just Todd and I. But so being that I branched out and being that I did some crazy stuff and I went out there alone, what that does is that makes waves, right? So you walk out in the woods, the squirrels go crazy, the birds hear that, whatever, the deer hear that, they move. So everything kind of makes waves. And that's what Todd taught me is if you make waves, it attracts them. So I'll walk around unarmed and just walk straight through the woods, like not go on a trail, just GPS. Okay, I kind of know where I am. And that's kind of what ultimately got me my most recent sighting. It was my last night there. But the 2 weeks that I was there, we went up to Radium. We didn't have really much success. We had a couple, tree knocks and stuff until Ashley came out with me. And Todd left. So I was just there with Ashley for, I think, 3 nights. And we were sitting by the campfire and it was getting dusk. And we're talking about just like Bigfoot stuff. Like, I wish they would be, because it was quiet. Like, I wish they would be like, more, just make some more noise, we're throwing it out there. Just push a tree down or something, or throw a rock at us or some crazy stuff. Like, let us know that it's not just an acorn falling from a tree. And sure enough. Oh, hey, how's it going?
Yeah, Denny from the Kentucky XFiles just joined us. I had him muted. So
hey, what's going on, fellas?
Welcome to the show, man. We're going to let him continue talking, and then we'll get some questions in. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Good to meet you, Denny. So we're around the campfire, and we're just talking about, wish they would be more loud, wish they would actually come out and do some stuff for us. And like 5 minutes later, we hear snap. How's it going, Tyler? And so I look at her and I'm like, yes, like awesome. Finally, I get so excited when they come around. So I stand up and I'm like, all right, well, I got to make sure it's not a bear first that just decided to trip over a branch on its way to come and eat me. So I walk up and I kind of walk towards the sound, and Ashley's a little bit behind me and to my right. And I heard a whoop. Did you hear that? I looked at her and she's looking ahead at the trail that runs past, and it's just dark enough where you really can't see. And her face goes, I was like, what happened? She goes, it just walked across the trail. I'm like, damn it, I missed it. So I actually had a sighting right in front. It just happened. I just missed it by a split second. And I'm so upset that I didn't get to see it, but I stopped. I was like, what was it? Was it long? Was it low to the ground? Like, I went through the whole questionnaire and she was like, no, it was tall and it went by quick and it was really black, but I couldn't see what it was because it went by so fast. And I saw it on her face. You can't fake that. Like, even I did a terrible impression of what it actually looked like, but it was enough for me to key in and like to try to catch it in time, but I just didn't. So that was a cool encounter. Another thing that happened, I've never had a rock thrown at me. And that was one of my big things, was like a big goal for me this year was to go out there and just hope for that to happen. I put that intent out there, like, hey, throw a rock at me. I don't care if it hits me in the face. Throw a rock at me. That would be so cool. So Todd and I, we heard some stuff out in another spot. It was early in the morning. We just got out of the camper, and we're hearing tree knocks and some other stuff. So that's our new thing, is if you hear tree knocks, you hear noises, you just go over there. Doesn't matter what you're wearing, what you're doing at the time, you just go over there. So we go over there, and Todd is working on his ESP and his telepathy and stuff like that. And but we'll get into that a little bit later because that's a much deeper subject. The third eye, the pineal gland, and all that stuff. So we go out to this one spot where we're hearing it, and I look down and there's bunchberries. I love bunchberries. I'm like, sweet, bunchberries. So we all sit down, and or it was just Todd and I. So we both sit down, and I'm just eating bunchberries. I'm having a great time. And he's kneeling down, and I can see he's a little bit in distress. Like he either doesn't look like he's feeling good, or he's just got something on his mind. And he looks up at me and he goes, watch this. And I look over at him, and a freaking rock comes through the air, hits a couple branches, and lands on the ground behind him about 15 feet. I'm like, what? Start freaking out again. I'm like, I want to go over there. He goes, no, just stop. all right, I'm going to go find the rock at least. I found the rock, and it's in the camper right now up there in Radium. So that was an amazing thing that happened, and I manifested it, I feel like. So that, man, if anybody has had a rock thrown at them, I don't think anybody was too happy about it. I'd probably be the only person that was happy about having a Sasquatch throw a rock, at least remotely near me.
I think one of the Kentucky XFiles guys had a question. Which one of y'all wants to ask the question that was there? You want me to unmute you, Denny?
I need a better signal, like something.
Well, I'm gonna unmute you both so you can control your own mic. But go ahead with your question. You had an excellent question in the chat. So
first, Kyle, it's nice to meet you, man. And sorry it took me a minute. I was in the middle of a gigantic upload, and I was like, if I jumped in here, I was going to be chopping like I'm on 1980s internet, you know.
Oh, good, man.
So my question was, your encounter with your dad. Did you feel the we when we talk to people, we get the feeling of dread. It comes up all the time. This feeling, this ominous feeling, like getting hit with that what do they call it? The infrasound.
Right. Yeah.
Can you describe anything about how you felt when you had the encounter?
Well, personally, I don't think I've ever been hit by old infrasound. Typically that's a really profound thing that happens, and it about puts you on your knees. I can't say I've had that happen. That night, I was definitely horrified because there was no visual indication of what was going on over there, but I knew what I was hearing. So I can't say that I had like I'm going to die, but I was definitely scared enough to think that something was about to pop out of those bushes full tilt at me. So I might have been in that fear of dread, or that feeling of dread rather, but I can't, like, I was just too focused on what that was and seeing the product of that noise than it was what I was feeling. I was already posted up, safety was already off. I wasn't worried about me so much as what was about to pop out. And I think that was a bad move on me too. If I'm armed and a Sasquatch comes around, they go away. I don't know. Guns go away. Because I want them to know that, especially in America, they know what guns are. I don't want that feeling. And I think me picking a gun up and pointing in that general direction definitely pissed it off a little bit more. So it's probably impartial to what I was feeling too. But no, I can't say I felt that dread. And I don't want to say that I did either, because I feel like that's misleading.
So what other experiences did you have when you guys were out there?
This most recent time in September?
Yes.
Like I said, it was relatively quiet. We had, like I said, just a couple tree knocks and stuff. We put apples up, and actually I had a really weird encounter. It wasn't actually an encounter with a Sasquatch. It was just a weird thing that happened. And I think I spoke about it on my podcast with Lenita, and because she's really deep into the other side of the Bigfoot phenomenon. And so when we leave apples out, we always clean up after ourselves. We'll go out there, we'll check them daily. If there's ones that have been eaten by squirrels or birds or whatever, we take them off, right? Because that's not a good offering to them. They don't want to eat half-eaten apples. So we take them off, we usually throw them out in the garbage that we have in the camper. So we're always really clean about our surroundings. We're always mindful of the waste that we leave. And even like, we don't even use the logs that the loggers have been cutting, because we just feel like that's bad Ukanuba, like we don't want to, we don't want to, what's it called? They're raping the land, and we don't want to use that, so it just makes it more clean if we just take care of everything. And we do care. So one day we heard some noises happen that night, and I wanted to go over there the next day. So, and I knew it wasn't on the gifting hill, which is a designated spot where we always gift. And it's across the trail, and it's almost directly to our right. But this was almost more like in front of me, but also on the other side of that trail. So I was like, all right, in the morning, I'm going to go over there. So I went over there that morning, and there's another little hill, and it's about 100 yards from the gifting hill. And and there's a trail that like walks, it's a deer trail that walks like right to the top of it. And from the trail, I saw something up there. I'm like, what the hell's that? Like completely, you spend a week and a half, 2 weeks out in the bush, you notice weird stuff out there, like completely out of place. That looks way too materialistic to be natural. So I walk up there, and sure enough, there was an apple bag, perfectly untouched, open, and just laying on the top of that little hill. There's one little spot where it looked like a branch may have like almost poked through it a little bit, or just wrinkled it, but that's it. There's no fold marks in it. There's no crumple marks. It's like perfectly laid out on the top of this little hill. And I'm like, there's no way that fell out of one of our pockets, because we just shove it in our pockets. It would have been crumpled up. It would have been wrinkled up. And even using the apple bag, wouldn't you think that the twist tie at the top would have torn it or something, and you would see where it was crumpled for weeks sitting in the store? There was no imperfection except that one that I said on the bag. So it didn't fall out of one of our pockets. It almost looked unused. And there was no way that even if we did drop it on the gifting hill, that it would have blown through hundreds of trees and landed perfectly in that spot. And there was no wind. It wasn't windy for the 2 weeks I was there. So there was no explanation for this apple bag to be there at all, unless for some reason it like reached into the camper and grabbed this apple bag and kept it perfect and just laid it there. Something laid it there. I have no idea what it was. No idea why it was there. I look over and there's a tree break. I'm still baffled about that whole experience.
I certainly want to get into some of the stuff that you mentioned earlier, the telepathic communications, the ESP that Todd's getting into. I certainly want to go there, and I'm sure Denny and Tyler probably have some questions of you as well. But Joe's been waiting in the wings, so I'm going to bring Joe on and give him an opportunity to ask his questions that he sent me earlier. Hey, Joe, I appreciate you joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We're glad to have you. So I know you had some questions for Kyle. Why don't you go ahead with your questions, and I'll let Kyle answer them one at a time.
All right. My first question is regards to your sighting. I was wondering on your approach, basically, why are they showing themselves to you and not many other researchers?
Well, I think that kind of comes with the person. Obviously, when you go into this type of topic or field, you kind of have to have the right mindset and the right heart for it too. And I guess your upbringing also matters too. I grew up in the woods. I grew up hunting. I grew up fishing. I used to just go take hikes for fun, and I truly do love nature. I do care about what happens in the environment. I pick up garbage whenever I see it out there, or even just like even at work, I'll pick up garbage because I care where that stuff ends up. And I don't think it's that I'm a special person, because there's 10 people I can name off right now in my cooperation. And, like Brian, you're one of them that I can talk to, and I just know you're a good person and that have had sightings and that have had encounters, so it does take a special person, and you have to be in the right mindset, but I don't think it's because I'm better than anybody else, so I try not to take it personally, although it is a very personal thing to have happen. I don't see myself as, any better than any of us.
Go ahead, Joe.
So after you've seen Bigfoot, has your perspective changed more or less, like your psychology or the way, you take everyday life?
These are awesome questions. We need more guys like you coming on here. Yeah, honestly, it has. I grew up in a really small town. My school had a really small library, but we had Bigfoot books. And I did book reports on every Bigfoot book we had. So I was always involved in it. I was always into the UFOs and stuff like that. But once you actually have, you hear the stories and the Patterson Gimlin footage and Todd Standing's footage and all the stuff out there, like for everyday people who are watching maybe right now who haven't had an encounter, there's that box, in your life that you're interested in. But when it actually happens to you, it's either I want nothing to do with it, or I'm fully devoting my entire life to this. And it depends on if it's a good encounter or a bad encounter. My first encounter wasn't really a good encounter. So I don't, it definitely put me on edge a little bit at first, but now that I I have a tribe that I trust and that I've been around and that kind of welcome me, and I feel safe around them, I'll explore more options with that. But it's definitely a definite change in kind of what you think is going on in the world for sure. And just how you are as a person, it's one thing to just say, oh yeah, no, the Loch Ness monster is probably real. Then you see one, and you're like, holy crap, like everything I do might affect how this plays out. And like, okay, I'm gonna watch my pollution now, and okay, I'm gonna donate to this wildlife fund, or I should get out there and do some more bird watching or something. It really does change you. And for everybody out there listening, especially you guys, I don't know if you have any encounters under your belt, but I really hope they're good encounters, and I hope it gets you out in the woods more, because that's what this discovery is about. It's about us getting closer to nature. It's about us getting closer to the Sasquatch. And there are a couple bad eggs out there. I think there's definitely a few that just want you gone, and they'll do what they have to get you out of there. And that's probably what happened to me my first encounter, but he failed.
In my life, I'm pretty much surrounded by non-believers. Do you have any ideas or recommendations that we could prove to the general public, the government, or even science that this to further this progress?
Wow, that's deep. So for the non-believers, obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Like Brian, you might have a different opinion on the ESP and stuff. I have my own opinions on that. But when it comes to the topic of Bigfoot, and if you have to sit down with somebody who actually wants to learn and actually wants to know more detail and more information about this, because if you're just talking to someone, that's like, I have a couple of guys at work that are just, there's no such thing. It's all bullshit. It's just a guy in a monkey suit. You can't talk to people like that. They're almost too far gone, like they're so close-minded that they don't want to, and you can't break that. And that's fine, because that's their opinion. And if that's how they want to choose to live their life, then that's on them. But for the people who actually want to sit down and come up to you like, hey, like, tell me more about this Bigfoot thing, you got them. And what I suggest doing is just going over the history of it. Like, we have cave paintings from 10,000 years ago of these monstrous hairy things, like there's that one famous one out there. I forget what it's called or where it was. But we have so much history. I mean, even in the native tongue, I have a list here of like 15 different Native American tribes that have different names for Bigfoot or for Sasquatch. That's a big, hairy, wild man that lives in the woods. So there's so much history, and there's so many stories about this. And I think there's a survey done somewhere. 200 million people in the world either know someone who's seen or have seen or encountered a Sasquatch themselves. That's not one person. There's no way it's one guy running around who might be a little bit hairier than the rest. It's impossible. So that's what I suggest. Just kind of start with the history side of it, and then like show them some footage. Show them the Patterson gimlet footage. I would say show them Todd's footage, but that's really controversial for everybody. So, but the Patterson footage, it's really well gone through. Jeff Meldrum, I think he looks at that footage probably once a month, because I see him post about it all the time. And I mean, he's a PhD, so not that you can't argue with Jeff Meldrum, but he's not somebody that you're going to doubt their opinion on. So when you get actual scientific fact involved with your argument, the people who want to listen and want to know and want to learn will most likely further into that themselves, and they'll hopefully take it upon themselves to do that research and find out for themselves. As for the government side, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna see if Joe had more questions, but you go ahead, and then we'll toss it back to Joe.
It was a multi-part question, I think. So with the government side, man, I've been trying to find ways myself to do that without getting myself offed. There's I've had some crazy ideas, and man, I don't really know how we're gonna go about it. What science wants is a body, and I'm very no kill. I do not want to see one of these harms, and you can't do it, really. I mean, even if you tried to trank one, these Sasquatch don't know what tranquilizer darts are. They see you pull out a gun, shoot one of their family members. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to do what, Denny, you would probably do. If someone walked into your house and shot one of your kids, you're probably going to kill them, right? Oh, maybe not. Tyler, what about you? I know Brian would. I know you would. But it's just one of those things that you can't get away with something like that. And they're always triangulating. There's always 3 of them, if not more. It's like finding a needle in 7 haystacks. You're never going to find a lone male, and let alone be able to trank it, let alone kill it without it killing you first. So when it comes to a body, it's literally almost impossible. I feel my only suggestion would be just to keep trying to get good, clear footage, and keep doing the research, and keep getting out there and doing your own research, and hopefully something comes to head.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. With everybody working with Todd, yourself included, you mentioned Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Survivor Man's worked with Todd.
Yep.
Now they're coming out with, not disagreeing with anything. Doesn't all this, especially with your accounts, doesn't it maybe authenticate Todd's footage a little bit more? I mean, it seems like everybody's backing him, if you work with the guy.
Right. Jeff Meldrum going out there and actually, seeing a Sasquatch with Todd Standing should have been enough, and you figure with a PhD in biology who's studied the phenomenon of Sasquatch most of his career, would have a little bit more say in kind of how it all turns out. And I'm happy that he went out there with Todd, and I'm happy that he had an encounter and had a sighting. I'm truly honored that happened. It just kind of baffles me a little bit as to why nothing really more came of that. But yeah, it does definitely add more authenticity to it, especially when Jeff comes out and says, yeah, I saw a Sasquatch and it was with Todd. Todd's footage is real. I mean, he said it on his documentary. Todd's footage is real. Same with John Bindernagel. Hopefully he's resting in peace right now. Unfortunately, he had to go before he saw anything. But even he said on the documentary, I mean, they're 2 PhDs simultaneously in the woods with Todd Standing, and they never had any doubts. Well, I'm sure they had doubts, but they never came out and were like, nah, I didn't really think it was real, or nah, I didn't really believe them, or it was always a professional. Yes, this is a real species.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, I don't believe that's entirely accurate.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I disagree with you on two points there. I've watched the documentary footage. I've talked to Jeff Meldrum, and I believe what John Bindernagel said, if I'll paraphrase, was that Todd had captured the portrait of a Sasquatch in his footage. I don't think he ever said he captured a Sasquatch. So I'm not sure that they were exactly sold. And that's been my take on Todd from the very beginning. I have had plenty of conversations. Todd and I have had those conversations.
Right.
I believe that Todd has had experiences, and I believe that you've had experiences. I'm just not sold on the video stuff. And we can certainly get into that a little bit more as we go along. I want to thank Joe for his questions. I think he's going to hang out backstage for the rest of the show, but I really appreciate him coming on. Those are very good questions, and they certainly beg some answers for sure. So I'm going to unmute Denny and Tyler here and let you guys chime in if you want. I'm getting some background on somebody's mic. So if you're not talking, if you want to mute your mic when you're not talking, but if you guys have questions, y'all can go ahead and jump in. I know Denny, you look like you were chomping at the bit.
Kyle, I have to ask, man,
Sure.
brother, do you ever get tired of getting challenged about Todd all the time?
Nah, it's fun to me. I stand behind him. I work under him. I've been out there. I know what the reality is, and the podcast was another way for me to come out and share my stories and give, like I said, my expeditioners, or our expeditioners rather, they're really great, honest, hard work, just like you, Denny, just like you, Tyler, Joe, Brian, everybody here. We're all in the same thing, whether we came from a different background or not. All the expeditioners, they're amazing, great, hardworking, honest people. And they come out on their own free will for their own self-learning and and to travel that road themselves. Todd really is just kind of an amplifier. And I can go back and you can go back and message any of these guys and you can say, hey, you know, whatever question you want, like, do you ever doubt Todd or do you ever doubt what you said? And they'll tell you no. They've gone out there themselves. They've done the hard work. And I want to give them this platform so that they can come on and share their stories and say, yeah, no, Todd's real. And yes, I've seen them and all this stuff, all his footage I can back. So it's not just my opinion coming from Todd or fed down to me from Todd. It's the people who are, I don't know, Michigan, Montana, California, Canada, all over the Northwest. And, I got people in Washington State that come on the show. I've never met them before. And they say, yeah, this has happened. I went out there with Todd. We had a sighting together. This is, that's what the podcast is for. I want to give those people that voice. So of course I'm never going to get tired of it because I love giving people that voice to come out and to talk about it. And not a lot of people are up to come out and share their story and share their name about it. So I do try to get more people to come out and talk about it. And there's some people in the cooperation that don't want to. And I understand, whether political issues or, whatever. But no, I have heard probably every argument or every stupid comment that you could push toward Todd, and I had to shut it down. Most of the time I just kind of laugh at it, and it's not worth my time to argue with these people, really.
That's fair. Absolutely. I was just curious because Todd is like a lightning rod,
right,
to watch. And I mean, he is just so intense, and even I'm guilty of going, I don't know, man. I mean, dude's kind of crazy. But then I was hanging out with my dudes on the show one day and we were sitting there and it kind of dawned on me, I'm like, dude, this guy's been doing this so long.
It's about 20 years now.
Nobody is going to stay with something that long unless they're super into it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like, oh yeah, I got super into collecting model cars. No, dude, you did that when you were a kid for like a summer and then you forgot and moved on. This dude's been in it that long. So you got to respect the intensity, whether you believe him or not, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And, that was another drawing point for me too, because by the time I saw the documentary and actually followed his work and got a part of his YouTube channel, it had been, 4 or 5 years since even after my first encounter. So it definitely took a while for me too, to kind of like, okay. And, it's not that I doubted him or I doubted his footage or anything. It was just like, okay, this dude's a little bit wild, but I guess you kind of have to be in order to get into this topic.
And here's the thing for me, I always go back to this for the videos, right? And I say it often. I've had Logan on the show. Logan's been out with you guys a couple of times. Logan actually texted me when he was going back out with you guys in September, and he's like, I know they invited you. Why aren't you here? And I'm like, I'm going to try to make that happen next. We want to make that.
Get you out there. We're
going to try to do that. But Logan has had experiences out there and he is fully 100% invested. He's drinking Todd's Kool-Aid and I'm okay with that because I believe that Todd does what he goes out and does, right? Here's the problem I have with that. And it always comes back to the footage. It's like the Patterson Gilliam film for me. It's all about that 59 seconds or 60 seconds of footage. It's all about the videos that Todd has put out of these videos saying this is a purported Sasquatch. And here's the thing that I've gotten to recently. I was watching some things on his YouTube channel the other day. And I think the thing that never really dawned on me was this. I know that people have said there's tons of different species. People think there are different species of these things running around in the woods, right? I agree with that to some extent, I believe. If any of this is real at all, they have to be adapting to their surroundings. Like skunk apes in Florida are not going to look the same as something from Washington State, the Pacific Northwest. So I said that to say, if you take the totality of I don't know how many videos that Todd's got out there. I know there's 4 that stand out in my mind that I always see put up side by side. There's this big, what people call the Muppet. There's people, I think it's Jake with this big head that Thinker Thunker has broken down and said that's Todd Standing's head. Todd and I've had that conversation on the show. There's no way that could be, whatever. And then there's this, what looks like some dude in some black makeup underneath this stump where you see this portion. So all four of these things together are completely different. Yet all this footage was taken, I would imagine, within probably 2 square miles. So that's a new question, right? I've had this conversation and argued with people before about this on the show, and you and I have went back and forth, and Todd and I have went back and forth, and Survivor Man and I have went back and forth. But this is a new question for me because it just hit me literally yesterday. How do you answer to that for Todd? Obviously, Todd's not here. What is your answer to the difference in the looks of these creatures that he's captured on video that he's purporting to be Sasquatch, all within let's say a 2 mile radius? Let's be generous and say 10 miles. They are completely different from one another. I mean, they could not be any more polar opposite with the way that they look, yet they're all basically in the exact same terrain, in the exact same weather pattern, all of these things. How do you equate, or how do you make up for that disparity? In my opinion, it's a disparity with actually proving that these things are real creatures caught on tape.
So the simple way to go about it is, well, first off, they're not from the same area. Videos 2, 3, and I think 4 are from California, and the rest of them are from my research area. So there is obviously a difference there in geography. But like I said, the simple way to go about it is, Tyler, do you look like me? Not really. Brian, you don't really look like me, right? And it's the same for the Sasquatch. So let's break this down a little bit more where there's tribes, right? So we don't know how many are in a tribe. I think mine, there might be 20, 25 of them in one tribe, right? So if you're an isolated tribe, obviously either because of highways or because of your boundaries, or for say the tribe's boundaries or territory markers, you're not going to move much, right? You're going to stay pretty much isolated in that range. So when it comes down to generational things, you can't interbreed, and that's just how that is. You can't bring your gene pool back into itself. It doesn't work. So what happens is a few of the either large males, or most likely the sons of either the alpha male, or maybe just a couple stragglers, they either come in or they move out, and they're allowed in and allowed out of that territory. And that allows them to migrate, find a new troop, interbreed, and create a new kind of family with different genetics, different offspring. So I think like video, the one, I forget which number it is, I should know this, the one Kubota where he's looking under the log, he looks entirely different from any other Sasquatch, right? He's a scary looking dude, but he looks different because he was probably a straggler that was led into the tribe and allowed to live with them in order for either genetic just kind of change, or just to help the troop, or the tribe get along, through the winter. And like the one video, Jake, the one where he's you see his face, he's gone. He's not in that troop anymore. He's gone. He left. He's got scars on his chest, and then there's a certain type of scar. And I think I know where he is. I think he's down in Mount St. Helens area around the Colorado River, because there's reports coming out of that area with a 9'6" Sasquatch who's got scars on his chest. And that, to me, that's Jake. Which just proves my theory more, where they're just migrating, and it's not the entire troop, because that's a stupid idea to try to cross a highway with infants. Terrible idea. Don't do that. So they're going to stay in their family zone, and they're going to just kind of break off, and they're going to migrate. One's going to come in, 2 are going to leave, and that's just how that works. They maintain a number, but they're just different families.
Okay, fair enough. I was wrong about the geography of the videos. So that may answer some of that. And I don't want to make it all about the videos. We've talked about that ad nauseum on the show, but I had a guy recently reach out to me, and he had a video that he said he ran into a clan of these things on some property, and he sent me a video, and it's interesting. It's I don't even really know how to describe it. I've posted it over on I think it's on all of the social medias. I think it's on Instagram. It's on TikTok. I mean, it's probably 50,000 views on TikTok, and there's probably a couple of hundred comments already. And the majority of the comments that are negative about this, the first thing they say is, oh, that's Todd Standing's video, because it looks very similar to some of Todd's stuff. The way it's filmed and the cinematography, I guess, would be, for lack of a better word. I was trying to upload the video clip so I could show people. It's about 1 minute and 40 seconds. But if you haven't looked at it, go over and check it out on TikTok, or go over and check it out on the other social media. I think it's uploading now. So if it uploads here in the next couple of minutes, I'll let you guys see it, just so you can be familiar while we're talking about it, Kyle. But that seems to be the common theme here, is there's literally people in the chat that are checking out of the show because we're talking about Todd Standing. And, I get that. I understand that. But here's the thing about my show. I've never shied away from anything, and I'm not going to shy away from Todd, because whether you like it or not, Todd is a person in the Bigfoot community who has over 100,000 people on his YouTube channel, and people listen to what he says and they value his opinion. So in my opinion, Tim Halloran's probably going to kill me, but I'm going to throw Tim under the bus and say he's a Bigfoot influencer, right? So whether you like it or not, he is an influencer in this community. So that said, how do we handle that? I think we have conversations like this. I've had conversations with people on the show who have worked with Todd, like you, and very few people are going to come out. Jeff Meldrum's never going to come out, in my opinion, and just bash Todd. That's not the kind of person that Jeff is. He's not going to do that. And secondly, he has worked with him in the past. And to me, that does lend some credibility to Todd in some people's eyes. Other people, like me, see it, I think, for what it really is. I think Jeff does his job. He is a researcher. He has a PhD. He is into this, and it's sort of a business for him at this point. Let's be honest, right? And that said, I don't think we're ever going to get him on the record bashing anybody in the community. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think, honestly, that's where people like me and other people who have a platform have to ask those tough questions and have those tough conversations with folks, or we're never going to move forward. And I think it's great that he does expeditions. I think people are going out and probably having encounters and experiences with these things, and I think that's great. My only problem has always been, and will probably continue to be, what evidence he puts out there as a purported Sasquatch. I think my video has uploaded, so I'm going to try to see if I can. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's about 1 minute and 45 seconds, but I'm going to give you.
Look at this guy. Look at his big head. Gray skin on the face. He's cloaking, hiding out very well.
So you kind of get the idea there, right? I'm working to get him on the show. He's going to come on the show, and we're going to get the backstory, and we're going to talk about this footage, because he's got other photographs, he's got other videos of what he purports to be a Sasquatch.
Was this
now when I posted
his personal footage?
Yes, that is his personal footage. So, and I reached out to him before I used it and said, "Are you okay with me posting this?" And like I said, it's 50,000 views or so on my TikTok, and the majority of people, it's the polar opposites. It's one of two. Yes, I see it. I understand it. That's a Bigfoot, or that is complete 100% bullshit. It's pareidolia. There's nothing there. Or it's a person in a mask. It's a suit, whatever the case may be. But that tends to be almost the barometer that we have now. It's the Patterson Gilliam film, the Freeman footage, and Todd Standing's footage that we have sort of as a barometer to measure what people are purporting to be Sasquatches caught on tape. And I think that's a little unfair. I think the Patterson Gilliam film is what it is. Still not sure about the validity of that. I'll be honest with you. A couple of days out of the week, I'm thinking not so much. The rest of the time, it looks real to me. I've just never gotten that from Todd's footage. And I've been 100% completely honest about that, and will continue to be. and we can agree to disagree if we want. So I don't know. Before we move on, I want to get into the woo stuff and the telepathic stuff a little bit. But before we close out, Tyler, Denny, do either one of you guys have any questions?
I just wanted to add to that. I agree, but the reason why I don't ever make a big deal of the footage is because Patty's from the 60s and they're still making a big deal out of her. It's not going to be solved that way. Whoever does this is going to have to hammer proof over and over and over. It can't be a one-off and then go silent for a decade or 2 decades. It has to be a flow of information. It has to be pattern and repetition. And once we get that, then we can start establishing science and study. You know what I mean? That's the frustrating part is like I'm kind of glancing in the chat and I'm seeing like, I don't believe this and I don't believe that. And it's not real and all this. I'm like, it's a waste of time because we got footage from the 60s that we're still doing that with. That argument's old and it's safe. Now you got to find arguments that aren't safe. Find proof that isn't safe. You know what I mean? So Todd's Pictures, yeah, man, they're controversial as hell. Or they're the best out there.
I'd probably say that
it's not safe. Sorry,
I'll
Todd.
probably no. I was just saying it's like I feel the same way because no matter what, I feel like Todd's footage, his videos is the most clear. Like I feel like you see definition, and that's why people are bashing it because it's too good to be true. Exactly. I don't know if I can jump in and say that it's whole. I feel like little discrepancies in some of the videos that just kind of doesn't. When you look at something like CGI, I know I'm not saying that it was CGI. I'm just saying like when you look at something and your eye is like, that's not supposed to be there. Like it has that silhouette. Even if it's like, if you're watching the new freaking Marvel movie, you can tell that you're like, that's a little off, but it might be real. Like even there's been CGI people that I watch on YouTube and they're ranting and raving over this one scene in freaking Avatar about its hand, thinking that it's CGI, but it's not this and that. So I can see that sometimes like people will get like a little trick in the eye and like, they're like, I don't know. It looks like it's makeup or it looks like it's a mask or something like that. But I feel like to get to the core of it, it's because of how much definition, because most footage we get is so blurry, you can't really tell. Yeah. You can't get anything out. The only footage that we've ever had that comes close to that is the Patty video.
You cannot call Todd's footage pareidolia. Like you could throw that one out, haters. I'm just saying.
I've never said that for sure. I've never said that, nor will I ever. And I don't think it's CGI for sure. So let's talk a little bit about not necessarily Todd's take on this woo and this telepathic communication and this ESP stuff. I want to talk to you a little bit about where you are on that, Kyle. You mentioned it earlier about him working on that, and that's the whole other divide in the community. And I've sort of tried to bridge that gap on my show. I don't necessarily steer away from people thinking that these things may be more than just flesh and blood creatures. I personally don't think they are, but that's just my opinion. A lot of people are on the other side of that. And clearly, people like Survivor Man, for example, when I had Les on the show, Les talked about this telepathic communication that he believes he had with several Sasquatch on a couple of different occasions. And Todd has told me the same thing. So where are you on that? And how have you seen that manifest as far as your relationship in the woods with Todd? Do you feel it's a real thing? Do you feel it's something more than flesh and blood that's going on? Or how do you see that maybe pushing the envelope further as far as researching these things and maybe even helping prove them?
So what bridged the gap for me, which I didn't realize at the time it did, because for me, I like the hard evidence first. If I'm going to go and study Sasquatch, I'm going to go for the footage. I'm going to go for the footprints. I'm going to go for the tree breaks, because that's all hard evidence. That's stuff I can look at and have right in front of my face and be able to analyze it. See, Daniel says too. So for me, what happened was, like I said, with my dad, he's my dad. He's my hero. He's Superman. Like I've said before. He had a really hard childhood growing up. He always wanted better for his kids, all that stuff. He's just a hardworking guy that has no reason to lie about stuff, or just he doesn't really go out and do things that wouldn't make sense. Like, he does things for a reason, and he doesn't lie about stuff. And I trust him wholeheartedly. So one night we're out in the Adirondacks again. We went back to see if anything happened. Some stuff happened. I got a tree pushed down. That was really cool. Nothing happened after that. So I passed out, and my dad woke up to use the bathroom, and he looked over and saw an orb. It was a red orb, and he said it didn't emit light. It didn't take in any light. It was just its own light, and it didn't move, and it just went out after 35, 40 seconds. And I was like, man, okay. All right. We're taking orbs off the shelf and we're putting them here now, because now I know they're real. I've seen a lot of picture evidence of them, and video evidence of them too. And whether that's paranormal or not, I'm not sure, but it's on the table now, because I've also heard a lot of other Sasquatch encounters involving with UFOs and orbs and stuff like that. And even one of our expeditioners, Caitlin, she's got footage of an orb, and she had that night she took the footage. She had a Sasquatch encounter and she had a sighting. So for me, most of that stuff was just shelved. Like, there's something to do with it, but not right now, because I need the hard evidence first. It's like buying a door for a car that you don't have. I can't build off of anything if there's nothing to build off of. So for me, it was shelved. And when that came off the shelf, that was the connection. That was the bridge to the shelf. So now everything in that and on those levels of the shelf are open now, and they're all connected. That's the bridge for me. Barely getting my toes into the water on that. I have practiced meditation. I have seen some crazy stuff. And it does help, actually, in more than one way, and not just the Bigfoot way, but when it comes to like self-help and taking care of yourself and your mental health. Like, once I started meditating, I could sleep better. I could sleep through the night. I could eat better. I felt better. I could formulate sentences better. I just felt more clear-headed. Like, it's amazing what it'll do for you. And what Todd did is he kind of took it a step further, and he did some, third eye, pineal gland stuff. And I'm not quite there yet. He's a lot further into that hole than I am. So I really don't want to speak for him. I've seen him, I'm going to say channel. And he's not one to do stuff like that. He was also on that same side where it's like strict hard evidence only. I have my footage. I have my tree breaks. That's what I'm sticking to, because the rest of it I can't put it in my hand and show it to somebody. So now that he's branching into that, it's not something that he's going to really just kind of be flighty about, or he's going to just say, whatever, or he's not going to lie about it. He hasn't lied to us in 20 years. Why is he going to start now? And I've seen him physically go through the channeling or even just in that meditative state, and he'll like break out in goosebumps, and he'll start sweating, and it's crazy. Like, it really alters him in a lot of drastic ways, and he'll get crazy migraines, and he's literally like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I gotta go do something else. My head really hurts. And he, like I said, he's not going to lie about that. So for me, I'm still working into it, but I'm also not on the same path as Todd. Like I said, I'm not the mold. I'm branching into my own things, and my goal is to not get footage. I don't want to get footage. What I want is to have an app in my hand and stretch it out and have a Sasquatch take it out of my hand. That's my goal. That's what I want to happen ultimately. Yeah, high five. That's what I want. It doesn't do me any good to get footage. Look at Todd. He's been ridiculed for 15 years now. Even you guys are kind of ridiculing him right now. Everybody in the comments. I don't see the comments, but I can imagine the stuff that's going through. It doesn't really matter, because I'm going to tell anybody and everybody. I'm going to challenge you, Brian. I'm going to challenge you, Denny, Tyler, anybody in the chats who wants to say that we're faking it and it's whatever. Come out with me or Todd. I will show you a Sasquatch, or you will live interact with a Sasquatch.
One day, brother, I'm going to come with you, and I'm going to see that Sasquatch, and then me and you are gonna drink some beers together about it.
That's what
I
I'm
can't
talking
wait.
about. That's what
Yep.
we need. Come out.
See, I want to
with
come,
us.
and I want. See, that's the thing is, I don't want to come all the way there to like challenge anybody. Like if I come all the way up, dude, I'm coming to see a Sasquatch. That's
Yeah.
I'm not leaving until I do. You know what I mean? We're gonna have to get one. We're going out. Tell Todd.
I don't
Denny's
want to
coming.
pull one out. I don't want to pull one out, but I do have different plans than just getting footage and being that guy that like Todd. And I hate to put him in that category, the guy that has footage. And you know, I don't want to. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't do me any good. I'm just gonna get ridiculed. Look at Bob Gimlin. How many years was he ridiculed? And he's still probably ridiculed to this day. And I don't know how old he is. He's a great man who stumbled upon the most incredible footage that we have to date well, I can't say that because I stand behind Todd. But nonetheless, I don't want to have to go through that. I don't want to have to deal with that kind of stuff, man. And it's easier for me to say, come out with me and I'll show you a Sasquatch. And when I walk out there with an apple in my hand and he walks out and he takes the apple out of my hand, that's all the proof you're going to need. I don't
Let's talk a little bit about what people can expect if they do come out on an expedition with you guys. What are they going to look forward to? I think Joe was the one in the comments who said that's a pretty heavy claim to say, you know, you're going to come out with us and we're going to have you either see or live interact with a Sasquatch.
Yep.
You know, that's a big claim, but I'll let you answer that and sort of tell everybody before we close out what they can expect if and when they do come out on an expedition with you guys.
Well, we definitely try to morph our expeditions to the expeditioner. So obviously, you know, it's rough backcountry stuff, you know, and if you're not physically able to go on the hikes and the stuff that we typically do, we do have electric bikes out there. You can ride around. We have decent logging trails that branch out around. So it really kind of depends on where your physical level's at. If you're, you know, like me and Todd and you love to go hike and do that stuff, we'll put you on some hikes. We'll go do a 10-hour hike. No problem. Any day. Let's do it. So, and for people who are maybe a little bit older, who just can't really get that around that much, we have the e-bikes. We'll drive around in a truck. We can still show you because there's close enough stuff at camp for you to look at and say, okay, that's interesting. And, you know, not to mention it's just pushing the Sasquatch aside, being out there in BC and seeing the sights. It's literally 360 mountain panorama view. It's absolutely gorgeous out there. The water is cobalt blue. It's straight from the glacier. It's the best water you can have. Just being out there is freeing in the least, you know, because like you put your worries aside, you put your stress aside, you don't worry about your electric bill. You just go out there and you sit back and you enjoy nature. You breathe in that amazing, awesome air for you. You drink the water right out of the river and you see the birds, you see the deer, you see the elk. If you're lucky, you'll see a bear, maybe, hopefully not. But it's really good for you. It's really cleansing. And you'll find on the third or fourth day that you're there solid, that you're going to sleep till noon and just feel completely exhausted. And not just from the hiking, but that fresh, clean air cleans you out, really. And it's like a reset button for you. And it just brings you that much closer to nature. And it makes you really kind of love and admire what's going on outside the door. And like I said, you know, aside from the Sasquatch, that's what this is all about. It's getting you out there, getting you in the woods, getting you back to nature, getting you to love nature again. That's what we want ultimately. And you can't really have a Sasquatch, a positive Sasquatch encounter if you're a dirty, watered down person. If you come out there and, you know, whatever, and this, you got to go in there with a clean attitude. If you can't go in there and be absolutely taken back by the beauty and just how it is, and the animals and the fresh air, then you're probably not going to have any success. So the first thing you need to do is connect with nature. The Sasquatch will connect with you.
So we've talked about it already, but let's talk a little bit about your show, the Discovering Bigfoot podcast on Savannah Bigfoot. You guys go over on YouTube, check it out, subscribe to the channel. Talk a little bit about the show, what that entails, and what you got coming up. You got any great guests coming up, or what can they expect when they tune into the show?
Well, I'm trying to branch off into to other stuff right now. Not just platforms wise. I tried to get on Spotify, and that kind of blew up. So I'm working on that. I'm sorry for the people who are waiting for it to come out on Spotify, because I put out a post that I did, and it didn't work. So I'm working on that, and I'll probably need your help with that, Brian.
I'll be more than happy to help you, man.
Thank you. So right now, I'm working on our expeditioners. I have a laundry list of amazing, incredible people who've had just the utmost success out there with Todd, and not only with Todd, but their own encounters before they ever met Todd. So it's one of those things where, like I said before, it's their voice. This podcast, I wanted, because when you go on Todd's channel, it's just him talking for the most part, and his videos, and him arguing about his footage, and this, apples taken and tree breaks and stuff, and that's all great. But you don't get to see the background side of Todd. And that's why I interviewed Todd's sister. Did you guys know Todd had a sister? I brought her on the show, and we talked about the bullshit claims that come out against Todd with the whole makeup design stuff. Like, his sister is right there telling it how it is. So I want to give that background to those people. And also the people who, like I said before, like Denny, I don't even know where you're from, but if you've had encounters, come on the show. We'll talk about it. You don't even have to have anything to do with Todd Standing up until you do have a connection with Todd Standing, So it's not really all about Todd. It's the people who change their thinking and their ideology and decide to come on the bandwagon with our expeditioners, and to have that amazing encounter with one of us really changes their life. And not a lot of people get to see that. So the podcast is for those people, for James, for Ashley, for Caitlin, all those people. And they get to come on, they get to tell their stories. That's what it's about. And, like, I've had Todd on a few times, and it's mostly me just grilling him about his footage. So I have to be that person too, where I grind him about these little tiny details, because I know all this footage. I've seen them all. I've studied them all. I know what they are. I know where they are. I know what Sasquatch it is. But there's these little details that, Brian, you probably wouldn't really even notice or think about. I'm like, well, what about that? And he's, oh, well, it was this. Oh, shit. Okay. So I like giving that background. And I'm branching out also into just people that have had encounters. Yesterday I did a podcast. It's not coming out till Saturday, with a guy named David. And, he's a hard worker, just like any of us here. He's an iron worker. He's just a good old boy from North Carolina. And he's a great guy. And he's just got stuff going on at his cabin. And he doesn't necessarily like it or is looking for it, but it's happening. And I want to give him that voice, because who else is he going to go and talk to? If he follows me and he's comfortable with talking to me, and he's comfortable with coming on my show and sharing his experiences with my fan base, or the Cooperations fan base, then all the better for our research, because we need those type of interactions. We need to know what the people who don't want to talk about it are having happen, because that could be the puzzle piece that solves all of this. If you have something happen and it's repeated, but nobody talks about it, that's lost. Nobody knows about it. They die with that. And that's not good. The only way we're going to get further is if people come out and share their experiences. Like, I know on your show, Brian, or even on Wes's show, where people come out and like, I've been hunting for 60 years, never had an encounter till that day, and I'm never stepping my foot in the woods again. And that hurts. I hate hearing that. I don't want that. I want to get rid of that stigma that, Sasquatch are man eaters, they kill people and stuff. And there are bad eggs out there. Maybe a couple here and there that did happen, or something provoked it too. But on top of all of that, there needs to be just this flow of information that helps us get further in this whole thing, because there's a lot of missing pieces that need to get filled in. So if you have those missing pieces, anybody listening, just please tell us.
Everybody go over and check out Sylvanic Bigfoot. Check out the Discovering Bigfoot podcast. Kyle, thanks for coming on the show, man. Denny, Tyler, everybody go over and check out Kentucky XFiles. They are on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast. Go over and check those guys out. I really appreciate everybody being here and everybody in the chats. I've had a blast, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Oh, I'm so down for that. Denny and Tyler, we need to hook up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Sorry, winter
it's
storm.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. That's totally understand that. I'm from the north.
Of frozen
And
doom. You know,
For everybody else,
Yeah.
I'm going to start the intro. If you guys want to hang out, I'll be back with you guys in a minute. For everybody else, y'all have a good night. Make sure you hit that subscribe and notification button before you leave. We appreciate you guys being here. We'll do this again soon enough.
They say you don't gotta go home, but you can't stay